We're following a funeral cortege through the outskirts of Baltimore. Kendall Starton was shot dead at his home in northeast Baltimore. He was 27. Today, his family and friends are burying him. While the US homicide rate overall is stable, those involving black youths have risen. Fault Lines is in the city of Baltimore to try to find out why, in the inner city neighborhoods of Obama's America, life for so many young African American men continues to be a fight for survival.
Our city's stubborn homicide count reached its lowest level since 1977. And we know that these crimes are the ones that gave us a bad reputation as a dangerous place, and for too long instilled the deep-seated fear that drove families away.
Baltimore's Mayor, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, is delivering her annual State of the City address.
It's not time to celebrate.
Her words are combative. The population of Baltimore, the largest city in the state of Maryland, has been shrinking for decades. Mayor Rawlings Blake wants to grow it again by 10,000 families within the next 10 years.
Let there be no doubt. The state of our city is now better, safer, and stronger.
For all the talk of declining crime rates, Baltimore is still one of the deadliest cities in the United States.
Are they still talking about it?
It's 1:45 p.m. and a man has been shot.
We've just heard about another shooting incident in the city of Baltimore, so we're on our way to the crime scene now. We're listening to the police scanner to find out exactly where it took place. And there's also messages sent out on Twitter by the Baltimore Police Department.
Police photographers, forensic officers and detectives work to investigate the scene. The bullet casings are marked.
The victim here was shot in the back. Those are his clothes that the paramedics cut off him before he was taken away to hospital. They've been taken away as evidence.
The pace of violence in Baltimore can feel relentless. Almost every day offers up another shooting. Today, there's more.
A couple minutes before then, police did come out, but they left. And then after they left, they come running down Murray Street, start shooting. And 2 bullets hit the victim, and he fell in front of the Chinese store. After the fight happened, an officer should have stayed out here sitting in the area, but they didn't. And like I say, this incident could have been avoided, but
This neighborhood is very close to downtown Baltimore, and there was a shooting incident here where 6 shots were fired and the police have been called out. This is the 3rd shooting that we've heard about in 24 hours and been to the crime scenes here in the city of Baltimore.
Today, illegal guns, not drugs, are the stated #1 target for law enforcement. The Baltimore Police Department has invited us to walk the streets with them.
This area, notorious for drugs. Notorious for drugs.
Yeah.
But as many people as you see sitting out here, there's always one person with a gun.
But you want to stop the drug dealing as well, right?
I do, but I'd rather stop the killing. Not that the drug dealing isn't bad, but the violence.
And most of the arrests you make must be for drug offenses, right?
Well, at this point now, but again, that's not the goal. What's going on, fellas? How you doing? Do me a favor, take your hands out your pocket.
The mayor says it's the strategy of targeting illegal guns that's seen the murder rate drop to the lowest figures in over 3 decades.
Does anybody have ID on them? We're trying to figure out how they're getting in the hands of kids, how they're getting into the hands of bad guys.
If the numbers of murders are down in Baltimore, and I don't know, but if they are, then I would not ascribe that to a changing program.
Ed Burns is the former Baltimore detective and schoolteacher who went on to write the hit television series The Wire. He says that crime and murder figures always ebb and flow.
I don't know how much progress is being made because we're not dealing with the root causes, all right? So if you lock up a person with a gun, there's a kid coming behind him who's going to pick up that gun. It's an endless cycle. The population in Baltimore is way down, all right? So if the population's down, your numbers are down.
If someone wants to attribute the reduction in crime for anything other than the strategies that we're taking and the investments that we're making, I think it's hard to convince them otherwise. We've gotten the reductions in violence at the same time reducing the number of arrests, which tells me that our targeted approach of targeting our most violent offenders is what will make the difference.
But while the focus is on guns, Mayor Rawlings Blake says drug crime will continue to be targeted too.
You know, we're never going to be at a place as long as there are people selling illegal drugs on the street, whether they're illicit drugs or prescription drugs. You know, we will enforce those laws.
How can you say we want to get rid of crime, and then once the person serves their time and come back out, you tell them they can't live in public housing, they can't get health insurance, they can't get certain jobs. So how do they live?
Donnie Andrews should know. A convicted murderer, Donnie used to rob drug dealers for a living. He and his nephew Dante, who's a former dealer, said some of the neighborhoods Baltimore's kids are growing up in feel like conflict zones.
This is our war land. We duck, dodge, run, hide behind trees, all this shootouts.
That's what it feels like,
Yeah.
that it's just a constant war.
Yeah.
Dante got into dealing drugs after an injury ended his hopes of becoming a basketball player.
You know, so I started dodging the street at 18. You know what I mean? Running with the wrong crew. Locked up, shot.
You got shot?
Yeah, I got shot in my back and my leg over this argument about a basketball game. He was on one knee, and he was just pointing, he bow, bow, bow. And the whole time, I didn't know I was hit.
So there's always been a recession in this
Right,
community?
it's always been a recession in this community. I mean, for any black community, it's always a recession. But we ain't gonna let ourselves go into recession. That's why we're gonna go to the first thing, we're gonna sell drugs. It's the easiest, quicker thing to put $1 in your pocket. What you gonna do? What you gonna run after? The slowest animal or the fastest animal? You're gonna run at the slowest animal, you know you can get them. So you're gonna go feed on that. You lost that bet.
Dante and his friends say the environment they've grown up in makes it difficult to imagine another way of life.
Certain things tear up the neighborhood, so a lot of the fathers is gone now. So there's nobody here to guide the kids. So they turn to all the negative things, because there's nobody here to guide them.
The blame for that, Dante's friends say, shouldn't only be attributed to those sucked into the drug business, one of the few multi-million-dollar industries this city still has left.
Most of the government, they let that in. And that's just plain and simple. They let it in, then once it reaches down to here, all right, we lock the young black youth up. Because that's the only place it's really going.
Baltimore wasn't always a city in decline. It was once a shipping powerhouse, one of the largest seaports of the mid-Atlantic states, and a major center of industrial manufacturing.
In the late 60s, Baltimore had industries like Bethlehem Steel, huge shipbuilding industry, a very active port.
Neil Franklin is a retired police major who spent 34 years in law enforcement. He's seen the decay firsthand.
Late 60s, early 70s mainly, jobs started leaving Baltimore. Industry started leaving, going overseas, wherever it ended up. It just wasn't here in Baltimore anymore. But it was also around that time that Richard Nixon decided that he was going to start a war against public enemy number one, drugs.
But it was President Ronald Reagan who turn that rhetorical war into a literal one.
You have to show that you have a drug criminal problem. So how do you do that? Through arrest.
At a time when drug crime was actually on the decline, not on the rise.
We went crazy arresting people for crack cocaine because of this so-called epidemic that we were having.
Incarceration rates began to just soar off the charts.
And we just put tons of black people in prison from our inner cities. Ungodly numbers.
More arrests meant more federal money. It's a system that still exists today in the form of federal job stimulus and other US Department of Justice grants for crime control and community policing.
It's not a war on drugs. Don't ever think it's a war on drugs. It's a war on the blacks. It started as a war on the blacks. It's now spread to Hispanics and poor whites. But initially it was a war on blacks. And it was designed basically to take that energy that was coming out of the civil rights movement and destroy it.
We have over 10 million people now with records. So come on, what was next 10 years we have 10 more million, 100 more million? I mean, come on now, we gotta stop at some point and say, you know what? You know, people change and we have to fight for rehabilitation, for chances for people to change, for opportunity.
According to a 2003 report from the Bureau of Justice, if current incarceration rates remain unchanged, 1 in 3 black men can expect to go to prison in their lifetime.
Even in the age of Obama, something akin to a caste system is alive and well in America. The mass incarceration of poor people of color is tantamount to a new caste system, one specifically designed to address the social, political, and economic challenges of our time.
Michelle Alexander is a law professor who says that the disproportionate numbers of black people in prison in America today is akin to a new system of social control comparable to slavery. She says that while President Obama has made some positive steps, like signing legislation that reduced sentencing disparities between crack and powder cocaine, where it really counts, Obama has not broken from the past.
But the reality is that Obama's drug control budget looks much like the Bush administration's. The ratio of funding invested in enforcement as opposed to prevention or drug treatment is about the same as the Bush administration's.
In the last couple of decades, the prison population across the United States has risen dramatically. We've just passed 3 prisons, seemingly right next to each other. We're about to go and visit one of those facilities where many of the inmates are from the city of Baltimore.
America incarcerates more people than any other country on earth. 1 in every 100 US citizens is behind bars. The state of Maryland is no exception. The prisons here are full.
All right, how's it going?
Good.
Sebastian Walker from Arizona.
Nice to meet you.
I'm here at the Roxbury Correctional Institution to meet Dominique Stevenson. She helped start a prisoner-led program called Friend of a Friend. It teaches long-term prisoners how to mentor younger inmates coming in with shorter sentences.
The fact that there is no economic development, there are no jobs,
Right.
and that
That's
leads
right.
to that despair that you're talking about.
That's right.
And so you still have to deal with that reality that the same things that brought you in here exist out there for them.
And I believe that the corruption that exists, particularly where I'm from out of Baltimore City, from a lot of political officials going all the way up to the corrupt President of the United States, for real, you know, because I believe no one actually care about the poor no more. You know, it's all about the rich getting richer, and we ain't getting nothing, not a damn thing.
If you're black, you're going to jail. If they stop you, they're going to do something drastic to you. That's how it is. That's how it's always been. That's why the prison fill up with all of us and not them.
William Haskins says he's serving a 42-year sentence for multiple armed robberies.
And everybody is in
on the suffering and the misery of those devastating numbers of African American men and women that are coming to prison. Everybody got their hand out and they're making money.
He was 19 when he was first locked up. He hopes to make parole this year.
How many jails have you been to in the last 28 years?
Oh my goodness, everyone except Cumberland.
Everyone in the state?
Yeah, except Cumberland.
Wow.
But in that normality, my goodness, I'm always got my mind set on that one thing. Going home.
Going home?
Yeah, going home.
There's so much damage been done that it'll take generations to heal what's happened. I mean, this is a war, so you're going to have casualties, and the casualties are not bodies on the street, though there are those. It's what's happening to, like, the children. You know, the damage that we do to these kids is profound.
The streets fathered me. My mother couldn't raise me to be no man. The streets taught me that. And the way the streets taught me was that was the way the streets was taught me. Due to the fact, no high school education, no college education, nigga probably can barely get a job at McDonald's.
This is Lamar. It's not his real name. He's agreed to talk to us if we disguise his identity. Lamar has been a drug dealer and a gang member. He's currently awaiting trial, charged with attempted murder.
I'm facing life in prison. If I lose, most likely I'm gonna do life or somewhere close to that. If I win, I walk. I'll walk, and I'll be a man walking the street, be 4 attempt murders and got shot 5 times.
Lamar's drug operation is on hold while he's out of jail on pre-trial supervision, one way that Maryland has dealt with overcrowding of the prison system. The reason he deals is simple. He does it because he says it's the only way he knows to support his family. And guns are just a tool of the trade.
It's something that's immune to me. Like this was day-to-day living since I was probably 16 years old. So I'm immune and used to it now. You see what I'm saying?
If you lived in a mining town, you would go into the coal mines. This is all you know. And this is all they know. So they're going into this world. They know the dangers there, you know. But what they have is no choice. And the way the game is rigged, they can't win. I mean, the number of guys that actually survive the corner to get into mid-level drug dealing so they can get away from the corner, they're few and far between.
Hopefully I could be in a better position where as though I could find something positive to do, but if I have nothing to do, I'm gonna have to only resort to what I know. You feel what I'm saying? Like, what else am I gonna do?
Growing up in a poor neighborhood in Baltimore means the odds are stacked against you.
And so we have a school-to-prison pipeline operating in Baltimore and in other cities across the nation where young people believe with some good reason that their destiny lies behind bars and they too will become members of the undercast.
Females getting pregnant and they're having children. Now it's children raising children. But without no high school education, how they gonna take care of their child? You see what I'm saying?
My mother was a child when she had us, you know. My mother told me she hated me, you know, and to get out of her face before she killed me, that had an impact on me.
No one's thinking about, like, well, let's look at these infants. Let's help these infants out. Let's help these mothers out so that these kids are raised in a healthy environment. Let's put the money there, rather than put it into, like, the back end. You know, $25,000 per prisoner per year. In the federal system, it's probably 30-some thousand per year. That's where we're putting our money.
A lot of guys in Baltimore basically raised with no father. So when you don't have a male figure, role model type of guy to follow, then you start resorting to other male figures. TV, streets, homeboys are probably like 4 or 5 years older than you.
If we don't have that family foundation, you know, you definitely don't have a chance, you know.
These kids are just chewed up and spit out. And they're broken, they get the criminal record, they can't get jobs, you know, they go to prison, they come home. The same thing repeats itself until their bodies eventually break down.
It was kind of scary coming through, because when you first come in, you're just with like all adults. Like you're just surrounded by adults that are like in bad moods because they're getting locked up. So they're kind of like, it's just a bad experience.
Located in the very heart of the city, the Baltimore City Detention Center is one of the largest pre-trial detention facilities in the United States.
Showers are dirty, toilets are dirty, everything's just dirty.
It's intended for adults, but under harsh get-tough laws passed in Maryland and some other states, juveniles charged as adults are also held here. 15 to a room, they're held indoors for about 23 hours a day. Anthony Thomason was just 16 years old when he was arrested for armed robbery and charged as an adult. He was ultimately cleared of all charges, but while waiting 5 months for trial, he wasn't attending school. He was in Baltimore City Detention Center.
For some people, you get stronger. For some people, you just go crazy. Like, there's people in there that, you know, once they got in there, they wanted to do more stuff than they were doing when they were home. Especially around being adults, and that adults are going in there, they kind of think it's what you're supposed to do. Like, they kind of get adapted to it.
The US Department of Justice agrees that spending nearly half a year in a crumbling adult facility can violate Anthony's constitutional rights. But the state's proposed solution is a brand new $100 million jail for minors charged as adults, which the city plans to build on this site.
I mean, the stress is just unbearable. Like, you gotta go through every day just thinking about how much time that you can get. People are in there worrying about their life being thrown away, like their entire lives. And if you grow up in a jail, that's where you're just gonna keep going back. So I don't think it's right for a kid to be in that situation.
As we're preparing to leave Baltimore, we hear of yet another shooting. No body this time, but the blood on the pavement is proof of the continuing cycle of violence.
Baltimore is a city that's still on the front line of the war on drugs. It always has been. And in the time that we've spent here, we've spoken to people on all sides of that battle. We've heard the talk about the new strategies in place and the progress that's supposedly being made to make Baltimore a healthier and safer city to live in. But we've also seen the impact of drug control policy on the streets. We've been to the crime scenes, and we've spoken to the people trapped in a cycle of violence, incarceration, and making a living selling drugs. When you walk through neighborhoods like this, it's hard not to feel that the legacy of the war these communities have been living through is so bad that rhetoric or anything short of radical change won't solve the problem. It feels like it simply could take decades for these communities to recover.
There's a war going on. It's not balanced. It's a one-sided war. It's an attack. This is a crime that we've committed and that we have to redress this. We have to begin to say, we're going to change this. We have to change it.
But what I fear is that we will reach a new plateau, a level of imprisonment that is still unconscionable, and millions will continue to cycle in and out of our prison system.
I just want to see my kids graduate. After I see that, they will take me to do what they want, and I'll fight, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna dodge, I'm gonna duck until I see that.
And that's the name of the game, survival. That's the street code. Survival by any means necessary.